As of the filming of this segment, the jury in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is currently in deliberations, deciding whether or not to convict Kyle Rittenhouse on several charges, including intentional homicide. The verdict may come very, very soon. It was hard for me to put this together. Normally, I've got some news and I can come and I can make a video, but we are moments away, potentially, from a verdict. Now, I've heard some rumors that their expectations, the verdict will come out today. I don't know for sure. What I can tell you is that already outside the courthouse, fights are starting. It's early in the day. Nothing too extreme. Some people shoving each other, one guy doing some ninja kicks. There are two different protest groups. There are groups in support of Kyle Rittenhouse, groups that are opposed to him, and we're already hearing the left say they will riot. They will shut it down. We're already hearing the right say they will defend themselves. Just think for 2 seconds how insane this sounds. Look, I've got two high-profile personalities. You got Hassan Piker on the left. You got Steven Crowder on the right. Hassan is criticizing the right for stating they will go out and defend themselves from riots. And Crowder is saying, if you go out and violently attack people, we'll defend ourselves. These are the realities you have to choose from. One in which violent rioters can destroy your town and defending yourself is wrong. And one where you simply say, please do not attack my town. And if you attack me, I will defend myself. Is where we're currently at. I think this is going to play a major role in 2022. And I think people are waking up and rejecting this. The Black Lives Matter riots, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is activating people like we've never seen before. And we've got the polling to prove it. Right now on civics, Black Lives Matter has equal opposition and support. 44% support, 44% oppose. And I think regular people who normally don't pay attention to politics were thrust into this, are now angry, confused. And so long as the establishment media keeps supporting the narrative, the lies, so long as they do that, we will see the Democrats suffer. It was Kamala Harris who fundraised for rioters. It was Joe Biden's staff who fundraised for rioters. And regular people on the left and the right do not want to be attacked and want to live peacefully. Now it's the leftists, the hardcore revolutionary types that are pursuing and pushing. It is the establishment Democrats that are backing them up. Now, I'm not surprised the far left is revolutionary. But I got to say, when you see the establishment Democrats just pile on because they know it'll get them votes, then you are going to see regular people in this country recoil. I'm going to go through a little bit about what's going on, but we expect mass rioting if Kyle Rittenhouse is found not guilty. And I'll tell you this. If they find him not guilty on the first counts, the intentional reckless homicide, I believe it's reckless homicide. But if they find him not guilty on some of the charges and guilty on the lesser included charges, I believe we will still see riots. In fact, people are already talking about wanting to riot because the gun charge was dismissed because they don't know the law. PolitiFact even coming out and saying we rated it false that Kyle Rittenhouse had a legal right to bear this weapon, even though they knew there was an exemption for people 16 or 17. It's incredible. Let's take a look at what's already happening outside the courthouse as tensions heat, as we're all waiting this verdict. And you know what the scariest thing for me is? Well, I'll say the scariest thing is if Kyle Rittenhouse is found guilty, it's damaging to all of us and our self-defense, our rights. But at any moment, and this is less serious, the verdict could come in. So by the time you watch this video may be out of date. But let's talk about what we're currently seeing, and I will give you that update. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com, become a member, and help support our journalists who are writing, who are fact-checking, reporting the news. And as a member, you get access to exclusive members-only segments on the Timcast IRL podcast and our other shows. But don't forget, like this video, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Let's get right into it. The first story we have is from NBC News. Kenosha braces for possible unrest after Rittenhouse verdict. Downtown business owners said they were ready to board up their stores and offices should protests turn into looting and violence. Let's be real about something. They're not boarding up their stores because they're scared of the right coming out to defend Kyle Rittenhouse. No one believes right-wing militias will attack anyone. The left doesn't, the right doesn't. No one believes it. Everybody in between. No one. Okay. Maybe a little hyperbolic, but I think in all honesty, fairly accurate. There may be some people who are just that dumb who think right-wing militia groups are going to go out and riot. They're not. The left, however, will. It's not a matter of condemnation or condoning anything. It is a statement of fact. The left riots, the right, typically in almost every circumstance, doesn't. And I say almost every because they've had their moments. But let's not just read this story. I'll come back to the story. The reason why I think this is important, possible unrest, let me show you some tweets. Some shoving going on in Kenosha in front of the courthouse. This is from Right Side Broadcasting Network's live stream. Now, I can't show you that conflict. I want to make sure this video can be seen by as many people as possible. But if I show you the conflict right now, it is low tier. YouTube may actually take this video down. We've got this video right here. Rebecca Brandon says some tension is growing with a few counter-protesters who have arrived outside the courthouse, one chanting earlier Black Lives Matter for child abusers, and almost gets kicked. So you have this guy holding a sign, this guy with a megaphone. The guy with the sign starts taking kicks at this guy because, look, right now it's like, as of recording this, it's between 2 and 3 p.m. Central Time. And you have tensions rising during the day. Kenosha, as you can see, is trending in Texas. Everybody's talking about this. Protests happen during the day, bleed out into the night. Riots start at night under the cover of darkness when these people are less likely to get stopped. I've got some more for you. Protesters have been gathering. If Kenosha don't get it, shut it down. Chants outside the courthouse as Rittenhouse trial nears conclusion here in Wisconsin. Steven Crowder tweets, if Kyle Rittenhouse walks, rightfully so, and protests start, the right needs to mobilize and counter. This is about God-given right to self-defense, and we need to vocally and publicly preserve it. Look at this response. He crossed state lines with a gun. If he had stayed home, he wouldn't have been in the situation. Kyle Rittenhouse did not cross state lines with a gun. Kyle Rittenhouse, as the judge so ordered, was in possession of a legal firearm. Now, some may say straw purchase. Dominic Black bought the weapon knowing it was for Kyle Rittenhouse. That's not even technically illegal. Now, he's being charged with it because the prosecution seeks to make their claim that it was illegal. The argument is Kyle Rittenhouse gave money to Dominic Black to buy an AR-15 that Dominic Black would own until Kyle Rittenhouse was old enough to possess it. The problem is that he then gives it to Kyle Rittenhouse to walk around with, and thus you have these charges. We'll see if they stick, considering the judge has dismissed count 6 against Kyle Rittenhouse. The fact remains, Kyle Rittenhouse did not commit any crime in that capacity. He was legally bearing a rifle. There's an exception for this. And thus, he didn't cross state lines. He was in a town where his dad lives, where he works, where his grandma lives, where his cousins live. For all intents and purposes, he lived in a suburb of this town. That's Crowder's point. Hassan Piker, the left personality, says, when Kyle Rittenhouse walks and there's unrest in Kenosha in protest, I hope we don't see the Rittenhouse precedent in action. That immediate night by other patriots who are simply defending random buildings. Let's think about this for 2 seconds. Is the argument from Hassan Piker that it is justified people go out, burn things down, destroy businesses, and threaten the lives of others? The police don't intervene. I think that's wrong. I also don't want to see right-wing groups showing up with rifles to guard buildings. I don't want to see it. But I'll tell you this. The riots are worse. This is the challenge. They're all bad. And I think we can all agree when we're at a point where we're like, well, I guess it's slightly better that the armed groups with medical kits and rifles are coming out. No. This is why police are supposed to do their job. They're not doing their job. What do we want to happen in Kenosha? Nothing. We want people to go about their lives, live peacefully. And if there's going to be a protest, I 100% respect it. come out, wave your signs, make your demands, stand in front of that courthouse and chant and megaphone, get in the way, obstruct, engage in civil disobedience in a non-violent fashion, and you have my respect. But when you threaten people's safety with fires at gas stations, smashing windows, no, the police must stop that. But they didn't. They didn't. For several days, they did not in Kenosha. And now this is where we're at. Look, I can understand your point, Hassan. We don't want people going out with weapons and feeling justified to just engage in this behavior. But I got to tell you this, the first thing you should be saying is, guys, do not burn down working class people's homes and businesses. They weren't going after big 1%ers and corporations. It was a small business. It was gas stations. They may have a corporate logo, but they are typically owned by individuals. They're small businesses. Where's the condemnation for that? I got no problem saying I don't want to see militias or groups with guns marching through the streets. I don't want to see it. But I'll tell you this. It's all bad. But the riots are substantially worse. And if the police will not stop the rioters and the left will not condemn it, you will see more right-wing groups come out. And don't expect me to blame Kyle Rittenhouse when the police didn't do their job, when the left said defund the police, and this is what we got. He goes on to say, oh, never mind, they're already gearing for it, referencing Steven Crowder. I hope nobody is gearing for anything, but the reality is they probably are. I wish we could just have calm. Fox News says Kenosha on edge, tempers flare among demonstrators. And in this video, it's just counter protesters and they're yelling at each other. But this is important because it's in the middle of the day. What's going to happen tonight, I fear. Rebecca Brandon says protesters are making more signs as crowd grows outside the courthouse. Heroes killed while standing up for Black lives and justice in the beautiful rising. The beautiful rising? They bashed an old man over the back of the head. They burned down buildings. These people are fascists. They have support from the establishment corporations. They have support from government officials. These are the fascists. Right now, it is the state. Hold on. I thought the state was patriarchal, white supremacist. It is the state seeking to imprison Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, who rendered aid to the protesters themselves. The state is coming after him. All of these people defending the state, they are the fascists. They are the ones that are supporting corporation and state and the actions henceforth. And what can we expect? The Washington Post says it very plainly for all of you to hear. No matter the verdict in the Rittenhouse trial, Black residents of Kenosha say justice remains elusive. What does that mean? It's simple. It doesn't matter what happens to Kyle Rittenhouse. They are going to keep rioting. There will still be violence and destruction. And I fear for everybody of this city. I honestly fear for the protesters. I don't want anyone to get hurt. And I think we should all agree. We don't want people getting hurt. I can't stand it. You know, I'll put it this way. I remember when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she passed, and I said, look, disagree with some of her rulings. Think she was an ideologue. But I think she has a very storied, profound career that inspires a lot of people, and I can respect her service to this country despite being at odds with some of her decisions. Donald Trump said, wow, you know, really remarkable woman, I'm paraphrasing. But there were people who were gloating and laughing, and that is the vile nastiness I do not want to see. I just can't stand it. I wish we had this world where it was like, I really disagree with this person, but they're a good friend of mine, and we try to work through these things and figure out how to live together. That's what we're aiming for. But I gotta stress a point for all of you. And I gotta make sure I drive this one home. The right, the conservatives, the moderates, the independents, the 2A activists are not the ones creating this conflict. It is the left. It is Antifa. It is Black Lives Matter. It is the revolutionary communists. They're going out and attacking the working class. Now, look, I get it when people talk about, you know, the battle in Seattle, you know, the World Trade Organization protests, throwing the brick through that Starbucks window. I think it's wrong. It doesn't solve problems. It makes them worse. But people are like, but don't you understand these corporations are bad, yada. Listen, I know the corporations are bad. I think massive monopolistic power is destroying the rights of the working class. I think, these big corporations, they'll open a corporate coffee chain right next door to a mom and pop shop, drop their prices down below market because they are subsidized by other chains, drive mom and pop out of business. Then once they control that space, jack the prices back up. I detest it. But who are these people to come out and attack mom and pop shops themselves? Be it the police who shut them down, be it the rioters who went after them. This is what I fear will come. I need you all to understand. This is the George Floyd protests Wikipedia page. They don't call it the George Floyd riots. And that to me is surprising. You know why? The official count is 25 dead. I want you to hear that again. 25 people dead. Is that justice? Was that justice for George Floyd? If that's the kind of justice they want to bring to our towns, then I say no. And I think Crowder is then right. People will defend themselves. Not morally right, factually right. I don't want to see people going out and fighting. But do you expect when 25 people are dead with billions of dollars in damage to mom and pop small businesses that people are going to sit back and just say, please stop, we'll do nothing? No. People are going to say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. People are starting to wake up to this, and it is going to have a major impact on the Democratic Party. The Republicans don't support the riots. The Republicans don't support Black Lives Matter for the most part. And I mean the politicians. So when you have Democrats coming out in support of this, don't be surprised when people say, I don't like the Republican platform. I am not pro-life. I am not religious. I actually believe in progressive taxes, but the one thing I can tell you that I do believe in is peace. So when these activists come out and destroy my home, I will vote for a ham sandwich if it means an end to the riots. This is the polling for Black Lives Matter. Civics has 281,000 people responding. Do you support or oppose the Black Lives Matter movement? 44% oppose, 44% support. Now, there was a brief moment where opposition was slightly higher than support. But for the most part, 44% to 44%. Take a look where it was before. Now, there was a period where opposition was way higher than support. And support overtook opposition as people were being converted. After the George Floyd incident, it was actually quite simple. Many people said what happened to George Floyd was wrong. Now, we know the circumstances. We know that he was not a saint, but we wish he didn't lose his life. And people saw that and they said, I can't believe it, man. We got to fix this system. And all of a sudden, opposition drops. And those who were uninitiated and didn't know drop as well. 25% neither support nor oppose, saying, I don't know. All of a sudden, support. 52%. But then what happened? Riots. And opposition skyrockets. And support drops to the point where the trend is being reversed. Now, I'll send out a warning to all you on the right. We take a look at these demographics, and what do we see? Among 18 to 34-year-olds, 54% support. Among 35 to 49-year-olds, 46% support, which is the plurality, 41% oppose. It is only among 50-year-olds where you start to see opposition. That means get ready for the next 10 years, where people don't care that these people have burned down buildings, destroyed, harmed people, threatened their lives, and yes, 25 people died. Justice, they call it. In the next 10 years, we're going to see the 49 bracket push into the 50 bracket, and you are going to start to see more and more support for Black Lives Matter. Now, that being said, we are seeing a decline in support, which means many people who are 18 to 34, they may actually start to drop. Take a look at this. Initially, support among 18 to 34-year-olds is, younger millennials, 47%, and it spiked at 66% when the George Floyd incident happened. Today, among millennials, it is 54%, so it is dropping. That is somewhat good news. And I'll break that down in a second. Opposition has been rising. It's good news because we don't want ideological zealots running this country, a fringe minority of people who have lied, who are cheating, who are stealing. What we want is reason, logic, and compassion. We want to recognize the harsh truths in our society, that there is injustice, that there is racism. We want to make sure everybody is treated fairly and equally under the law. And it doesn't always happen. You know, right now, many on the left are like, what if Kyle Rittenhouse was a black teenager? You know what? What if? And if he was, I would absolutely be saying the same thing I'm saying now, because I will tell you this. Gage Grosskreutz, the leftist revolutionary, has a constitutional right to keep and bear arms in this country. Now he was illegally carrying that handgun. And I'll tell you this, I will always defend his right to keep and bear arms. That being said, if he gets charged, that's the statute right now. It is wrong, and it should be overturned. Now, I think this guy is a zealot. I think he's an ideologue. I think he lied multiple times on the stand. They have said his gun he was possessing was illegally possessed, illegally concealed. And you know what I say to that? That may be true, but I believe he has a God-given right to have that gun, no matter his ideology. I don't care if you're on the left, you're on the right. I don't care if you're religious. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, Mexican. You have a right to keep and bear arms. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can give you a little bit of understanding about what's going to happen now as we await this verdict. Earlier today, Kyle Rittenhouse conducts a random draw. This was surprising to me, seating 7 women and 5 men for the jury. They put the names of all the jurors in a tumbler, rotated it around, and Kyle Rittenhouse selected at random 6 names. I actually thought that was shocking because it means Kyle Rittenhouse got to see the names of some of the jurors. That being said, Kyle Rittenhouse is allowed to. He's allowed to know who the jurors are. He can see them in the courtroom, just we can't. 6 jurors were chosen as alternates. So they were told not to discuss the case. I believe they were dismissed, but we'll see what happens. The judge said it's rare they'll be called back in. And now we're awaiting deliberations. There is some interesting information here. Giovanni Lieghi, this is verified on Twitter. He's a multimedia reporter for Fox News, says the jury in the Rittenhouse trial has asked for 11 additional copies only of pages 1 through 6 of the jury instructions. These pages lay out the self-defense privilege. Interesting. And we can speculate all day and night. So this means there was 1 copy of the self-defense privilege instructions. When they went in, the 12 jurors sat down and said, everyone needs to read this. It could be nothing. It could literally be them saying, okay, this is a case on self-defense. Everybody's going to need a copy to read. It could be some people were not convinced it was self-defense. And they went in there and said, it's not self-defense. And someone said, you need to read the instructions. I don't need to read anything. No, everyone needs to read this. It could be that everybody walked in and said, this is self-defense. And someone said, let's be sure. Let's be sure we're right about this because we don't want to get it wrong. Let's get 11 more copies. I'll tell you what I think the simple solution is. Because a lot of people are going like, oh man, what can this mean? I think the simple solution is 1 copy is not enough for 12 jurors. And they want to be able to read it themselves. That's what we're seeing. But maybe, I don't know. I got to be honest. I'm sitting here and I'm nervous. I'm talking now for 24 minutes. For all I know, the verdict's already come in. Again, I'll tell you this. I got my sources. And there is it's rumors, nothing confirmed. Expectation of a verdict today. So I've been sitting here just like watching the live stream roll, wondering if it's going to come down in the middle of a segment. I don't know. Take a look at this from the New York Post. This is from James A. Gagliano. From irresponsibly pointing a gun to tisking, DA's closing in Rittenhouse trial was pathetic. And they may be sitting here as a supporter of Kyle Rittenhouse saying, this is great news. This is great news. The prosecution flubbed it. We all know he flubbed it. I am not here to blow smoke. I am not here to lie. I am not here to say, everybody knows Kyle's going to win. From Legal Insurrection, Rittenhouse trial, defense delivers disappointingly weak closing argument. We do not know. And everybody who's like guilty on all counts, and I've heard it, I've seen it from the left, and everybody on the right who says he's not guilty on all counts, calm yourselves. There's a few things I will point out, though. Wisdom of the crowd. When Anna Kasparian and Chris Hayes say we were wrong, when Chris Hayes is like, I think an acquittal is likely, I'm looking at the polls. I'm looking at these live streams with 50, 60, 70,000 people. Law and Crime, they did a poll. 80% not guilty. And so I got to tell you, that's the wisdom of the crowd. Tons of people, they're all asked, and you see where the majority lies. And it's an interesting premise. If 80% of people believe you'll be found not guilty, you can effectively, out of 100,000+ people polled, no, seriously, out of 100,000+ people, you can say, well, there's a lot of bias in there. But with 100,000 people, if they all feel that way, why would not the jury, right? But think about it this way. 80% is not 100%, meaning there are still some people who say he's guilty. The jury could come back. The jury could say not guilty on counts 1, 2, 3, but guilty on the lesser included of reckless endangerment. They could argue, yeah, he was defending himself from Rosenbaum, but he put Richie McGinnis in harm's way because he chose to have that rifle. I don't think the defense did a good enough job explaining the firearms. Because here's how I would have put it. I would say the prosecution has argued Kyle Rittenhouse did not need this rifle to protect himself. Well, I would tell you this. It is not legal for the defendant to carry a handgun. If he wanted to protect himself with a firearm, perhaps there were better firearms to have, but the law gives him the exception only on this rifle. And in fact, he chose a .223. And he should have shown the .223 round. He should have said that's what it looks like. He could have then held up a .450 Bushmaster, a .458 SOCOM, or a .50 BMG. And he could have said, listen, and here's how I'd put it. Kyle Rittenhouse chose an AR-15, one of the most common self-defense weapons in the world, mostly in the United States, but used all over the place. And he chose it chambered in a relatively small round, I believe, one of the smallest. I know you can get, a 22 or 17 Super Mag, they're very small, but he chose a very common, small round. If he had the ability to choose something else, could he have? Perhaps, but this is just, it's a common item. To hold it against him because the law restricts what else he could carry, I think is unfair. This is what is allowed, and that's what he chose. But the fact remains, he brought a medical kit with him. It was not about intentionally harming anybody. It was not about being reckless. It was about going out there knowing these people have attacked the elderly. These people have burned down buildings. I really wonder about this. Maybe it came up and maybe they weren't able to do it, but I wonder why they didn't show the 70-year-old man being bashed over the back of the head. Perhaps the judge said it's not relevant to what Kyle Rittenhouse was thinking. But no, I think it was. I mean, we talked about the trailers being set aflame. We talked about the buildings being burned down. Show the video of that man being bashed over the back of the head. And say, Kyle Rittenhouse saw this. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. Maybe that's why they didn't bring it up. But I saw it. And that's when I was like, something's got to change. For the past couple of years, the past year for the most part, the left has been saying defund and abolish the police. Now, my stance in a sane world is that it is wrong to take away our police force. But you know what? In the past year, I've had a coming around. Why? Because I watched the same videos you did. I watched police arrest people in their own homes while Black Lives Matter protested them. I watched police stand by as riots happened across this country for several days as 25 people died. I watched the police do nothing. And who is on trial right now? Kyle Rittenhouse. The police did nothing. I watched in New York as the police defended the Black Lives Matter mural. So don't come to me and say Blue Lives Matter. Because if they did, if the police were doing their jobs from the get-go, Kyle Rittenhouse would never be in this situation. These buildings would never have been burned down. The 25 people who lost their lives never would have. It would not have been David Dorn, a retired police captain, going out on his own and losing his life in these riots. It would have been the police doing their jobs. So I will not defend these institutions that stood by as people died and went to the homes of regular people and arrested them, who shut down small businesses, and today testify against Kyle Rittenhouse. No, I will say it very clearly. Abolish the police. You know why? They weren't there anyway. Why should I stand up for an institution that stood by after 25 people died? Why should I? I believe policing is important. I believe most police, the overwhelming majority, are good people. I believe they do a good job. But I believe when it came down to it, when it mattered most, they did nothing. They stood by and let these cities fall apart. But you know what? I'll say this as well. There are people who vote for this. And so I can understand a lot of the cops saying, I'm not getting involved. But then I look at these detectives testifying against Kyle Rittenhouse. Never should have happened. The police should have said no. The police thanked them for being there. We heard that testimony. And now the department has the gall to come out and say, no, we investigated him as a criminal. If Kyle Rittenhouse did not bring that weapon there with him that day, you would have 3 people on trial. You would most likely just have Rosenbaum on trial for brutally beating and possibly killing Kyle Rittenhouse. But Kyle Rittenhouse decided not to stand back. He decided he would go out there to help those who were protesting with a medical kit, but he would defend himself as well. We've seen all the videos of people being brutally beaten. And we know that 25 people died in the George Floyd riots. Could have been 26. Because the Kenosha riots, albeit the Jacob Blake riots, it was all part of this big wave. Kyle Rittenhouse could have lost his life, but he didn't. Because he defended himself. And a mob of ideologues attacked him after the fact without knowing what happened, instead of letting him go to the police. Why? Kyle Rittenhouse was running to the police. Gage Grosskreutz knew in some way he was involved with the police. He testified, he thought, Rittenhouse said, I'm working with the police. Okay, well, he's going to the cops. Let him. It's over. Instead, he draws a gun on him, charges at him. Anthony Huber sees a kid running towards the police. Legit, a couple blocks away. What does he do? Hits him with the skateboard twice. Then tries to take the weapon. The moment he had his hand on that gun, and he did, he was in possession. He was armed. I hope the jury comes back with the right verdict. I'll leave it there. Get ready for tonight, my friends. It is going to be the craziest and biggest show we've ever done on Timcast IRL because we're nuts. I'll put it this way. Every big name in Austin. I hope you're ready for this. 8 p.m. youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.